Hello everyone, and welcome to another DIY with MistrMopar. Today I am going to be showing you how to change the front and rear brake calipers and pads on my 2009 Infiniti G37. It should be the same for 09 through 13. And the tools you will need to do so. Now myself, I have gone with the slotted drilled rotors and ceramic pads made by Detroit Axle. They are reasonably priced. They are made in the USA. I've used them on other vehicles, and they're a good quality part, and they're very reasonably priced. So first and foremost, if you've watched any of my other DIY videos, you know that I'm big on safety. And you can see I've got my car up on 4 jack stands, and I've also got the jack in the back, which says an extra. First thing you're going to need is your socket for your lug nuts. Mine happen to be a 21 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and take those off, and we will go from there. So I've got, let me see if I can get this brighter. Got my tire off. Now you're going to need a 14 millimeter for your brake caliper itself. There is one bolt here, and then there's another one. If I can get it right here on the bottom. Once you've got the caliper off on the back, back here you will see two big bolts for the caliper bracket, and those are an odd size. Those are a 22 millimeter. A 7/8 gets on there, but it's a little loose. A 22 millimeter is a perfect fit. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the two 14s out, get my brake caliper off, and then I'll proceed to the two 22 millimeters to get the bracket off. We'll pop that old rotor off and put the new one on. Another thing I meant to tell you guys, you see my studs are a little, well, they're not terrible, but they're crusty. What I like to do is take a brush like this in my drill. Just clean them up. As you can see, it makes a big difference. Another thing that I do is once you've got the brake caliper off, this here is your slide pin. There's one top and bottom. Make sure that those move in and out, and if they slide, that's what they're intended to do, is slide in and out. If they do not, you're going to want to get them to free up and grease them. So I just use regular grease. Grease them up. Make sure before you put everything back together that they go in and out and move and slide properly the way that they're supposed to. That will keep your brakes from getting hot and wearing out prematurely. I've got my two 14s out of the brake caliper, and now that I've got the 14s out, you're going to notice the brake line, this rubber line, it's very short. I mean, there's really, that's it, that's all you've got. So when you take the brake caliper off, you're going to want to work it from the bottom up and pick it up and not try to go down with it, because if you try to go down with it from the top down, there's just not enough room on that rubber line to give you any slack. So what I do is I work the bottom out. I usually take a little pry bar or something, just get in behind it, get it freed up, do the same thing from the top. Once it's off, I pick it up and I take a bungee and go around the top control arm here and just let it hang through the bolt hole, just it keeps the pressure from being on the brake line itself. So there's the caliper. That's how I hang it. Just put the bungee right through the hole. I go up over the control arm and hook it to the spring. If you've got a shorter one, you can hook it in other places, but gives you the idea. That just keeps, like I said, the weight and the pressure off your brake line. Now I'm going to move on to the two 22 millimeters on the caliper bracket. I'll show you those once more. So there's one right here on the top, one right there on the bottom. Now I've got a 22, and this is actually an extendable ratchet. And I'm going to come at it from the bottom, and that will give me the opportunity to extend my ratchet for leverage if I need it. They shouldn't be too difficult to remove, but just in case. So this is my caliper bracket, and this is what I was referring to with your slide pins. If I can get this to stay here. So this is my bottom one. You can see it goes in and out. That's what it's supposed to do. This one on the top is stuck. It doesn't want to move. So I'm going to break that free with a wrench. I'm going to pop this rubber boot off, pop the whole thing off, put some grease on it, work it around until it moves freely like this, like it's supposed to. Otherwise, it's going to cause your brakes to get hot, your caliper's not going to work right, and you're going to be doing new brakes again before long. Everything's off. I've got all my threads cleaned up with my wire wheel and my drill there. I'm going to put the new rotor back on, and I'm going to put the bracket back on, and I'm going to work that slide pin free and grease it up while it's bolted to the car. It just makes it a lot easier when it's bolted there and holds it in place. So just another little tip. So I ended up working my slide pins free without putting it on the car. These are 17 millimeter, and this one was pretty well stuck. So what I did was I put my 17 on it. I got it to spin, around both ways. I popped the rubber boot off the bottom of it, sprayed some PV Blaster around it, sprayed some down in the hole, and I kept working it back and forth until it spun freely. Laid it down on the ground, tapped it with a hammer, got it to go in, and then I actually put my 17 on it, and basically like I was unscrewing it, but I was also prying on it at the same time. And even though it's not threaded, it kind of just worked its way out, and then I was able to pop the whole thing off, get the grease in there, and now she's working properly like it should. So I've got this all put back together, so I'm just going to give a quick recap. So you need a 21 millimeter for your lug nuts if they're the OEM lug nuts. You need a 14 millimeter for your brake caliper, a 22 millimeter for your caliper brackets. When I compress my calipers, some people do, some people don't. I do crack the bleeder screw. That's a 10 millimeter. It just gets rid of the risk of damaging the caliper when you're compressing it without being able to release the pressure inside. And pretty self-explanatory, really. The 2 bolts on your caliper go from the bottom up, hang it up with a bungee cord or a piece of rope, whatever you got. 22 millimeter on the caliper brackets. Remove your rotor, put your new rotor on, put the bracket back on. Don't forget to check your slide pins. If they're stuck, free them up, grease them up so that they work properly. I use a wire wheel, clean my studs, just make them look good. And before I put this back together, I'm gonna hit this with a little fluid film just to keep it from getting rusty. Fluid film is a rust inhibitor, so it will stop that little bit of surface rust from getting worse. So I hope this helps somebody out. Drop me a comment, let me know. I do appreciate the feedback. And I will be doing the rear brakes another day.